Hello and welcome to Kernels. This is an ongoing program from the State Library of Iowa where we feature in-practice librarians sharing some of their great ideas so that other in-practice librarians can also benefit. My name is Maryann Mori and I'm the consultant for Central District with the State Library of Iowa. Today, our topic is all about bike rodeos at the library. And many of you know that I am a cycling enthusiast, so I'm very excited to be presenting this topic. And with me, I have Annie McCabe, who is the Youth Services Librarian at Sheldon Public Library in the northwest part of our state, and Matt Burkey, who is the Safe Routes to School Manager with the Iowa Bicycle Coalition. And you'll find out in just a little bit about how these two organizations came together in a productive partnership to put on a bike rodeo. So Annie, we're going to start with you, and then we'll get to Matt's section in the latter half. But Annie, you like so many other librarians, youth services librarians, you did a summer reading program, and you went with the theme Find Your Voice. So Annie, it looks like you did a wide variety of family programs for your summer reading program, and it appears that the first one that you did was the Bike Rodeo. Was this the kickoff for your summer reading program?
Yeah, sort of. It's our first big giant program. It starts the summer off.
Okay, and there's a close-up of that publicity. I just have to say your publicity is really nice. It's very eye-catching. It's got your library logo on there. And this was actually promoted on your local radio station's website. So you had some good publicity there. You show here that the event started at 5:30 in the evening. So as people are getting off work, they can stop by, bring their kids. How long did this event last?
Till about 6:30.
So just about an hour.
Yeah, just about an hour. Yep.
Okay. And this was not your first time to do a bike rodeo, correct?
No, we did one last year too at the start of summer reading.
Okay. So tell me about some planning. It should have been a little easier this year, maybe, since you had already done one. When did you start to plan?
So this year I started probably in March. Mostly just trying to get volunteers together, get permission. We use just north of our library is a big municipal parking lot, so we need city council permission to block it off for the day. And so getting all those pieces in order, getting it on the summer library program calendar and getting all the word out. So that started in March. And then because this is our second year, we pretty much just replicated what we did last year, a few changes, but tried to stick with what we knew. And because it is the middle of the summer library program, it's utter chaos here, and anything we can simplify and repeat, we do.
Right. Now, you talked about planning and needing that parking lot. I saw this news article that says you were asking for even more room than you had last year. So that must have been one of the changes that you learned from last year's event, that yes, it does take room to host a bike rodeo. That's one of the considerations if any of the librarians watching are considering this for next year or for this fall. But you did ask for more space. Now, explain again, where is this parking lot in relation to your library?
It is directly north of our library. So that brick wall you can see back there is actually our library.
Okay, so next door then, pretty much.
Yes, yeah, right next door. Yep.
Okay, good. And your city's eager to cooperate in this regard, I hope?
Yeah, they have been yes, no problems at all from city council getting it blocked off. And then the streets, we block it off at 7:30 in the morning, so we have time to set up, but also so people don't park there for the day. And our streets department is great about getting out there when they first come in, and they block it off, so I don't need to come in at 7:30 and block it off. So yeah, they've been really nice.
So that's something that our librarians would need to consider if they're going to use a parking lot that's not their own, or even if it is their own, that maybe, as you said, maybe having the street blocked off so there's no parking that would be in the way. So that is something that you would have to plan well in advance because, as you said, you had to get permission from your city to do those things. Good to know. I see that you had this this cool little form that you gave to each participant that they had to stop by each station and do the activity to actually complete the rodeo. There are 7 stations on here. That's a lot. And you maybe had an 8th station as like a welcome tent that people registered at the beginning. So it does obviously take quite a bit of room. And I'm assuming quite a few people to help with this. You mentioned earlier something about volunteers. How many volunteers did you have to help with this?
Well, this year we had 17 volunteers,
Okay.
which was a little not quite enough. We had some unexpected no-shows. We could probably, 5 of those are the EMTs in town. So they're all at the helmet fitting station. So we could have done with less. 17 would have been a fine number if they'd been redistributed, but we had a few no-shows, which is, part of the game when you're relying on volunteers.
Okay. And where else besides your EMTs, where else did you find your volunteers?
Last year when I was first getting this started, I made contact with a woman I know in town who is in part of a biking group and just asked her to put it on their Facebook group. And so I met with her again. She came and brought some of her family, and then my partner is actually a biker, and so he found some people. It was just it was a lot of word of mouth. Matt put out a call for volunteers there. We put out a call for volunteers everywhere we put our publicity out to, so the radio and the newspaper, but we mostly got them through.
And Matt, do you have a recommended list of potential volunteers that you share with people that are hosting a bike rodeo?
Yes, we do. So the coalition has a list of members, and we can pare that down to the area the rodeo is happening. So I was able to get Sheldon and the surrounding county and contact our members and say, hey, there's this great volunteer opportunity in your area. And that's nice because I'm not emailing people on the other side of the state about, I'd love to tell everyone in the state about the Sheldon Rodeo, but for a call for volunteers, we can narrow the email down to the locals and get them. And that email just also promotes to our members, hey, there's a rodeo, there's a chance to volunteer, or if you know a group of a family with young kids that want to learn, it's a great way that we can help our partner organizations reach members and spread the word.
Wonderful. All right. And I like your idea too, Annie, of contacting local cycling clubs. And I would say if you have a bike shop in your town, that would be another great place to maybe post a flyer about the event and to see about volunteers. So tell us about the day of. These are photos, actual photos from your event. Tell us how the program worked. What went well? What would you maybe modify for next year? And just comment too. These are a lot of questions I'm asking you to answer. Comment too. I see that you have, it looks like a lot of teen volunteers. Is that true?
We did have a couple teen volunteers. The one in the center is my daughter, actually. So she got roped in. And then we had a couple other teen volunteers. It's great to have teen volunteers, depending on the station. Some of them really require an adult, but a lot of like my daughter in the center front was quizzing kids on signaling and gave out stickers. And so fun things like that. It was good to have volunteers, and teens are sometimes an easier group to get a hold of than adults.
Right. So what went well as far as your stations? It looks like you had some decent attendance, and just tell us about the day. How did it pull off? When did you corral all of your stations? How does the day function?
So as I mentioned before, when we come into work, it's already blocked off, which is really helpful. We then, every year we have had people parked in the area anyway. So we give them a little while, and then we call the police to have them contacted to move their cars. But then we start setting up as soon as we have the space. Because it is one of our first days of summer reading, it's utter chaos in the library. And we are a very small staffed library. So there's 3 of us here. One of us had a program. We're also open that evening. And so staggering the setup, and so it essentially takes most of the day between people sliding out when they can to get their part set up. The assistant director here does the obstacle course, which is a big chunk of the rodeo, and then I do all the other stations. So we try to get it set up. Volunteers show up about 5 for a 5:30 event, and then families start coming around 5:30.
So it
Right.
sounds like you need to make sure you allow for plenty of setup time. If a library is planning to do this, they should cancel all their meetings for that morning, right?
Yes, I would. Yeah, it's just even carrying all the just carrying the tables and chairs out, it adds up to a lot of time when you're not setting up in the library. So definitely allow some time for that.
Okay. Here's some more pictures of the event. Tell us a little bit about the participants. Were these people you normally see at the library, or does it attract people who aren't usually at the library?
It's a bit of a mix. I would say 2/3 of the families are our regulars, the people I expect to see. And then there's a few people who I don't know, which is great to see them in there. It's mostly young families, so a lot of early elementary kids and their siblings is who we see. So.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about ages. It looks like you've got maybe from around 4 up to approximately 12, at least in this photo, and some of the other ones. So that sounds like that's about the general age. Matt, is that kind of the age group that you have in mind with the bike rodeo?
Yeah, for the bike rodeo, working with the University of Iowa's Public Health Department program, 4th graders are the best target audience because they're at the right cognitive level to receive lessons and execute them. When you get a little younger, it's harder to get the kids to focus on learning and doing at the same time. But we've had great success anywhere between the 3rd and 6th grade for the rodeo. And so I try and advertise and promote to elementary schools or elementary age groups. Okay,
good to know. I like your bike license that you issued to all of the participants who completed the stations at your bike rodeo. This is kind of cool, really special. And Annie, did you design this yourself?
I did. Just
and just for the benefit of our viewers, what program do you use for your publicity and for things like this?
We use Canva for pretty much everything. And it was also printed in black and white. And so explain some of the color choices. But yeah, so we actually we printed it on a piece of cardstock and cut around it. So it was like their own little license.
Very nice.
And then they would draw themselves in that's the beginning of their face. So they would draw themselves in there for their ID photo. So
okay.
That's a fun.
Well, our 2023 continuing ed theme at the State Library has been productive partnerships, and that certainly seems to be what joining of your 2 organizations seems to be, the joining of the library with the Iowa Bicycle Coalition. And one of the things we talk about when developing a productive partnership is to look at the participating organizations' mission statements to see how they line up and to see what you can offer each other. So I have a slide here that shows the mission statement of each of your organizations. And in reading through these, I couldn't help but notice that the library's mission statement includes providing information, helping the community access information. And the Iowa Bicycle Coalition has a goal of education, which is a form of information. The library provides a community gathering space, and the Iowa Bicycle Coalition is interested in sponsoring events. So your events can easily be hosted by a community gathering space. So I saw that these were a couple of ways that your mission statements really complemented each other and that you each helped the other meet and fulfill your mission. So Matt, I want you to tell us a little bit about the Iowa Bicycle Coalition. I know it's been around for at least 20 years, and tell us what it is, just a nutshell background of what it is.
Yeah, the Iowa Bicycle Coalition will be celebrating 20 years next year, and our focus is a combination of education and advocacy on promoting Iowa as a great state for cycling, not just cycling to work or cycling to school, but for cycling tourism and just promoting all things bicycle within the state.
Okay, great. And tell us about the Safe Routes to School program. What is that and why does it matter?
So the Safe Routes to School program is nationwide, and each state has the option to have a Safe Routes to School manager or coordinator. What the program aims to do is to improve the ways kids can get to school by walking and cycling. And so the CDC likes to quote that in the 1960s, almost half of kids walked or biked to school. And in the 21st century, it's down to 15%. And that's also linked with the rise in childhood obesity, the mental health crisis with young people right now, and just trying to do a small step and get more active lifestyles in young people.
Great. This slide that you provided us talks about independent mobility. And I know I've heard stories or even seen pictures of kids flying on a bicycle and as a meme, and it says something like my first mode of being independent. And it's true. When we get that bicycle as a kid, that often enables us to be able to go places that we otherwise might not have been able to go to. I remember as a kid that I rode my bike to my library, which was located about 2 miles away. And there weren't any sidewalks to it. So I probably would not have walked that distance as a kid, but I could ride my bike there and get books and things from the library. So that independence on a bicycle is just incredible for a young person. Talk about what the loss of independent mobility can mean for a kid.
Kind of like you, I grew up as a young latchkey kid, and when I got my first bicycle, it just expanded my world from the block I lived on to almost half of my city. And just being able to get a real sense of adventure and exploration and just to learn navigation from an early age. And worldwide, we're seeing children's independent mobility being reduced, and what that does to a young person's brain when you're exploring your city and you're on a bicycle and you're seeing everything around you, the trees, the cars, the neighborhoods. Whereas a lot of kids today, when they're going around their neighborhoods, they're looking at the back of the car seat of their parent driving in front of them. And so they're not getting the same information that we did or other people do when they're exploring by walking, by biking around. And it's also the social aspect of I've made more friends. They say it's hard to make friends as an adult, and I'm making friends as an adult the same way I did as a kid by riding bikes and getting to know people that way.
Very true. So those are good reasons to get kids on bikes. And you're helping to do that at the Iowa Bicycle Coalition by providing an Iowa Bike Rodeo toolkit. This is more than just a document. This is a whole toolkit, as we'll show you in just a bit on a future slide. But tell us a little bit about this toolkit.
So the toolkit was a brainchild of my boss, Mark, and we needed to change how we were approaching bike rodeos and bike safety education. And we wanted to actually move the needle and reach more communities than I can by just driving around the state helping out rodeos here and there. And so we switched to a partner program where instead of us coming to your community and doing the rodeo, we trust you that you know who to ask for volunteers, who to partner with locally. We just provide you with the information of everything you could possibly need to know to do a toolkit. And I've had 6 different people that have never done bike rodeos before host their own rodeos this year with this toolkit. So it looks a little daunting page-wise, but the last 2/3 is just an appendix with copy-paste information, things to email, waivers, activity guides. And I was walking through the toolkit with one of our coordinators. She asked a question and went, "Never mind, it's in the toolkit." Did that quite a few times over the phone, and that's kind of nice and reassuring for us that the information we thought of almost everything you could need.
And Annie, I assume you used this toolkit to host your rodeo. What did you like about the toolkit?
We used a similar toolkit last year when we were planning. If I had access to this, I certainly would have. There was quite a bit of information in there, so it was really helpful. Like there's even suggestions of social media content. So that kind of stuff is really, there's just so many details to think about when you're planning a bike rodeo that it's really helpful to have it laid out in front of you like that. Even, small things like, what am I going to say in this Facebook post? It's, it's in the toolkit. And so it can be really useful.
That's the idea of the toolkit as just a turnkey program, because a lot of our bike rodeo coordinators, it is a volunteer position, and we just want this to be as easy and seamless as possible. So you can focus on wrangling your volunteers and other things and not worry about what do I email parents? It's in the toolkit.
Okay, good. And this is just a couple of screenshots here that shows you some of the things that are in the kit. And I see on the one document you refer to schools, community centers, or local law enforcement agencies as hosting organizations for bike rodeos. When did you realize that libraries, public libraries, are also an ideal hosting organization, Matt?
When we were trying to figure out how we reach all the counties in Iowa, we started thinking about bike shops, but there are bike shop deserts in the state. And what other organizations in rural Iowa or other Iowa counties know how to host an event that people would know and trust? And libraries are a good gathering place for any community. They know how to host an event on a shoestring or no budget. And
true.
Yes.
Yeah. And no staff.
And we have a lot of them. We have over 540 public libraries in the state of Iowa. So we're all over the place.
And so it's good programming for a library spring through fall. Summer is a great time to do it. There was a lot of bike rodeos that are always in May, but this is a good kind of thing to do in the fall as a welcome back to school for the kids, and also get them access to the library. Like Annie said, 1/3 of her rodeo participants were not library regulars, and that's a good draw to get people to come visit your library, I think.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned about the timing of a bike rodeo. May is National Bike Month, so it makes sense to have a bike rodeo then, and it's kind of the beginning leading into summer. And Annie, you had it as the kickoff for your summer reading. But Matt, I like what you're saying about doing this in the early fall, maybe after your summer reading has quieted down, and it's a good way to bring people back to the library and to get those kids prepped for thinking about riding a bike to school. And this is an example of a bike rodeo, or what's called a bike safety clinic here. So this kind of shows a layout of how you can do the course, an actual, the different stations, as well as kind of an obstacle course. Tell us a little bit about the map. Is this something that's part of the toolkit?
So it's part of the toolkit. If you have to be willing to talk to me after reading the toolkit. And so one of the hardest parts we've had with people coordinating the bike rodeos is they can't figure out how to design the course or what to put where. And if you contact us and will work with us through the toolkit, these are both maps of rodeos I designed for 2 different size parking lots. One is for the Hudson Elementary School, and the other is for a church in Sioux City. So I've noticed a lot of relief in people coordinating and hosting bike rodeos when I tell them, oh, I'll take care of the route.
Wow, that's a great service that you provide. And Matt, can you just clarify, do you charge for any of this?
This is all free and funded through part of the Iowa Bike Coalition and the Safe Routes program. So if you come to us asking us, we love your toolkit, we'd like to do a rodeo, you don't have to say you love the toolkit. If you come to us and want to do a rodeo, we'll design the course for you. And I've been working with different people to have different parts of the rodeo. So some of them have obstacle courses. In Maryann, they have a lot of new roundabouts. So we're trying to design a bike rodeo with a miniature roundabout so the kids and even some of the parents know how to operate on a roundabout. And in our Cedar Rapids bike rodeo coming up, I designed a pseudo bike trail on the map, because some of the bigger cities with bike trails, people get mad at kids biking for not saying on your left or going around people, but the kids don't know that. And so you can't be mad. You can't be mad at a kid for not knowing how to do it. And so I work with whoever's hosting the rodeo of what do you want to teach in your community?
That's
and
great.
So we're not trying to make the toolkit one size fits every Iowa county. We're working with our partners to make sure we're teaching what you want your kids to know in that community.
Wonderful. And you
If I
said the
could,
magic words, Matt, free. Annie, go ahead.
if I could just agree, when you get this toolkit, it's gigantic and there's a ton of information, but there's also just so much stuff. And I'd really encourage people to think like Matt is saying, that like these are your choices. This is your menu, right? Like depending on what your community needs and what you are seeing in your community, you can pick and choose the small parts of it that work for you. It doesn't make sense to talk about bike paths where I live. We're in a very rural area. We don't have bike paths. But, we have very specific needs that I see around town and the other bikers see around town. And so just picking the few things instead of being overwhelmed by looking at a toolkit or a list of stations or skills you should focus on the skills that your community really needs.
Yeah, that's great. And these are some additional pictures that Matt, you've sent from some other bike rodeos. And I often see that libraries and other organizations that sponsor a bike rodeo, they do partner with their local law enforcement. That evidently is a really good partner as well for something like this. Anything you want to add to these photos, Matt?
Yeah, this is from our Hudson Bike Rodeo earlier. So in Hudson, the school resource officer reached out to me after reading the toolkit and said, "Hi, our principal asked us to host a bike rodeo. How do I do that?" And so school resource officers are a great place to start since they already have a relationship with the kids. And almost every bike rodeo we've had this year, we've had local law enforcement partner. They're more than happy to come out. They're a great partner because you need stop and yield signs for a bike rodeo, and the police usually have a few extra laying around, or they know someone in the city. And that's also part of the toolkit, who to ask to get free stuff. So libraries don't have to go and buy stop signs and yield signs.
And we've talked a lot about this kit. I'm going to show you just a minute what this looks like. Annie, did you have something you wanted to add to that?
I would also encourage people to try their local emergency services. That we have really great luck. They are very happy to work with us. They do all the helmet sizing. They bring things to give out to the kids. They're really happy to do some community outreach, especially here in Sheldon. So that's really nice.
And another good resource for is your county public health department, because the emergency services, the police force, and the public health, they all view these as traffic calming measures and traffic education, because the goal of these rodeos is if we start teaching young people the rules of the road on a bicycle, they can carry that with them in a few years to a car and try and help reduce road fatalities in the state of Iowa.
Okay, so the toolkit is a document, and is that available online?
The Iowa Bike Rodeo Toolkit is a free document available on our website, iowasaferoutes.org.
Okay, so tell us about the Rodeo in a Box here.
So the Bike Rodeo in a Box is a program we're starting this fall. I received a grant from the Governor's Traffic Safety Bureau. And so some communities, especially rural communities, don't have access to stop signs, yield signs, safety cones, and all the bike tools you might need for repair. And so this grant got us the money to buy 10 bike rodeos in a box to distribute across the state, with the idea that the person hosting it will share it with others in their community. And awesome. So there's 9 left. And I think a bike box is large. It's about the size of a TV box and easy to slide in somewhere. And so I think libraries, especially rural libraries, would be a great partner to host these bike rodeos in a box. And they would have everything they would need. They could lease it out to other organizations in the county that want to host their own bike rodeo.
And how would a library apply to get one of these?
To apply to get to these, you can reach out to us, the Bike Coalition. Our email is on our website, or info@bikeiowa.org.
Okay, great. Anything you want to say about additional bike safety education as we get ready to wrap up here?
We've noticed that bike rodeos nationwide do increase traffic safety, and not only does it teach the kids the rules of the road again, the parents learn a lot along the way too about the hand signals and what to do at a stop sign. And so that's the goal of this program, is to reduce the number of crashes between cars and bicycles. And if you look at crash data last year, 60% of bicycle crashes involving children were at intersections. And that's a big part of what we're teaching in the toolkit, is the importance of stopping, looking left, right, left. And a big thing I've been helping try and get across is that when kids see a car at an intersection, they think that because they can see the car can see them. And as experienced cyclists and drivers, we know just because you see someone at an intersection does not mean they see you.
Okay.
And
so that kind of ties in with our outcomes, which I wanted to talk about a little bit. Go ahead, Matt, add some more to that outcome aspect.
So to do that, the other part of our partnership with the toolkit is just sending us at the Bike Coalition the data of your rodeo, how many volunteers you had, and more importantly, how many kids you had visit. It's not because we want to know how many kids are we reaching with our toolkit, instead of our previous model of me or the previous coordinator just traveling the state. And so getting a good turnout, it's not only are we teaching traffic safety education to young kids, they're having fun, and it's a great community outreach, because you're, like Annie said, she had the emergency services there, you have volunteers, so it can become a real community gathering, especially for small towns, of everyone getting to know each other, getting out of the house and visiting with people, and maybe you'll make a new friend that wants to go on a bike ride with you.
Annie, tell us your perspective about the outcomes. It looked like you had pretty good participation, and were you able to promote the library as well, maybe to some of those people that you don't usually see inside the library? Were you able to talk to them about how to get a library card, etc.? Tell us about the outcomes from your perspective.
I think the outcomes are definitely worth the time we put in, even putting aside the safety issue, which we have, just purely anecdotally, we've given away bike helmets that the hospital in town helps us fund. And both the EMTs and library staff think that we're definitely seeing more kids wearing helmets around town. So who's to say that that's all us, but any small bit helps, because we're up where we are, there are not a lot of bike helmets worn. It's very rare to see a kid, but they're slowly increasing. So I'm hoping that is the outcome I'm most concerned with.
Yeah, that's a great outcome.
Yeah. I'm really excited about it. And the EMTs also work hard all summer to encourage bike helmets. So it's not just us, but it's nice to be able to help. And then we've gotten a lot of great publicity about it. We are still, like our local newspaper, we're still their headline banner on their Facebook page, even though it's been, a month and a half. We have families come in all the time asking about it. We have grandparents especially coming in really excited. They missed the rodeo, but they want more info, or could they get a helmet, for their grandkid? So we give a few out afterwards. So our the publicity we got for the library, and like you said, the new families at the library having a good time and learning some things always helps.
That's great. Well, here is the contact information for both Annie and for Matt, and I'm sure either one of them would be happy to hear from you if you have any questions, and especially contact Matt if you're interested in how to find the toolkit, if you want to apply for one of the bike kit boxes, and if you have any questions about how to do this, you want him to help you with a route, or if you want to talk with Annie about, hey, what was the best part, or how did you corral that EMT group to come and help you, because mine doesn't seem as excited about it as yours was. So I think it'd be great if you'd contact either Annie or Matt to ask them additional questions. And I just have to say that Kernels is an ongoing series, and we have many of the Kernels previous episodes posted to the State Library of Iowa's Continuing Education YouTube channel. And there is a whole playlist of them, so you can watch several. These are also cross-posted to Iowa Learns, which is the State Library of Iowa's learning management system, so that Iowa librarians can receive credit, CE credit, for watching them. So Annie and Matt, thank you so much for being with me today and for talking about bike rodeos in Iowa.
Yeah, thanks for having us.